And after a tumultuous 2 months, the Karnataka High Court has finally given its verdict on the hijab issue. It has ruled that hijab is not an essential practice in religion. And how it has done so is that the court has said that an essential practice is one without which one would be out of the religion. And since that is not the case of hijab, it is only recommended but not mandatory. Therefore, it is not an essential religious practice. Now, this has led to huge reactions. Various political parties also coming out to say that they will challenge this verdict in courts of law. Listen to some of the reactions coming in.
I mean, if everybody starts feeling that I'm going to be either wearing this or talking this or have a particular hairstyle or a particular, you see, the chappals or some religions also say that you should go bare-chested. Some religions also believe in no clothes at all. One branch of Jainism, I remember, don't believe in wearing clothes. Can we do this? I mean, it will become shocking. What kind of school will be left?
I think it's about time for us to be very strict and say that the court has decided, and this is a constitutional principle. Common sense also says the same thing. We don't want them not to wear hijab outside the school. They can wear it immediately after they leave school. But inside the school, they have to not wear the hijab. That's the rule. It applies to everybody. Otherwise, tomorrow somebody can say, I have a right to come in a bikini. Who can stop me? It's my fundamental right. Where do you draw the line?
We are not only welcome, we are all. Whether you hold one view or the other view, we are bound by the judicial verdicts. Court said that you will have to go through the test of essentiality. Only something which is essential for the practice of the faith shall receive protection under Article 25.
But the pro-hijab lobby has in fact kicked up a huge storm on this issue in the past and now say that they will go ahead and challenge this entire issue of this verdict in the apex court.
Yeah, I disagree with that judgment of the Honorable High Court because it suspends the fundamental rights relating to expression, religion, culture and conscience. I definitely feel that this is a right case to be appealed in the Honorable Supreme Court.
जहाँ तक हिजाब का सवाल, वो अपना अपना कोई हिजाब रखे न रखे, ये उससे अपना है, इससे ज़्यादा मैं कुछ कह नहीं सकता।
तो मैं समझती हूँ एक तरफ से हम बहुत बड़े दावे करते हैं औरतों के अधिकारों की, उनके इख्तियारात की कि उनको बाइख्तियार बनाना है, एम्पावरमेंट करना है, और दूसरी तरफ से हम उनको ये भी हक नहीं देते हैं कि वो क्या पहने और क्या ना पहने। तो मैं समझती हूँ ये बहुत गलत है, ये ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए। हर इंसान को, हर औरत को, हर बच्ची को ये हक होना चाहिए कि वो क्या कपड़ा पहने और क्या कपड़ा नहीं पहने। ये इसका फैसला अदालतों के पास नहीं होना चाहिए।
वो धोती कట్టుకుంటాడు, वो शेरवानी మన ఎవరు దాంతో గవర్నమెంట్ కి ఏం సంబంధం అధ్యక్ష నాకు అర్థం కాదు। అదొక అంశంలాగా చిత్రీకరించి ఇంత సంకుచితమైనటువంటి విధానంలో వ్యవహారం చేస్తే ఈ దేశం ఎక్కడికి పోతుంది? ఏం జరుగుతుంది?
I don't know how this verdict is given by the Honorable Court. That will have to be examined by legal experts and taken up in some other upper courts. We said it is part of not essential and essential things like that. That be debated in that context. There is something inside that. Why should it be debated like that?
Let's take this across to our guest joining us. We have with us Tuhin A Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP. Also with us is Shalini Ali, national convener of the women's wing of the Muslim Rashtriya Manch. Ashwani Dubey, advocate, is with us. He is an advocate in the Supreme Court. Also with us is Syed Aslam Pasha, spokesperson of the JDS. But I first and foremost want to go across to Syed Halim. She's an activist. Syed Halim, now what the High Court has essentially come out and said is that this is not an essential religious practice, and how they have defined essential religious practice is that it is something that is mandatory, is not mandatory but is recommended, and therefore not wearing the hijab does not mean that the person will be out of the religion. Now this is what the High Court has said. Do you agree, or do you think that there is some merit in that argument?
See, firstly, the argument whether hijab is intrinsic to Islam or not is a larger debate. It is not applicable to the debate right now, the ongoing so-called hijab row, because here the Muslim girls are being forced to choose between education and hijab. It's nothing but discrimination, which is a systematic and institutionalized discrimination against minorities. Here we are suspecting whether a Muslim girl, or rather a girl, can have agency or not, which is unfortunate, because here this is nothing but discrimination, and here we are undermining the will of women. Because here, can we even allow this to happen to Sikh students and tell them off with your turbans? We cannot do that. And here we are talking about 200 million Muslims. Sikhs comprise of 20 million Sikhs, and today nobody in the country can ever do that, can disrespect if the Sikhs decide, yes, the turban is intrinsic to Sikhism. So today, it is unfortunate that in the middle of the academic year, these girls will be shoved out of, shoved out from the education system.
Let me bring in
They
Tuhin
will not be allowed to give in.
That's where exactly the point that you yourself mentioned, the intrinsic nature, the essential religious practice is the argument of the High Court. But I'm going to bring in Tuhin Sinha on it, and Tuhin Sinha, I want you to respond to Saira Shah Halim, where she says that what this will end up doing is that this will end up depriving a lot of Muslim girls from education, and that's going to be an unfortunate outcome of such an order. And she says that she has compared this with other religions and other religious symbols. Is there a comparison here to be made? Tuhin Sinha.
Good evening, Madhav. Madhav, today's High Court judgment is a landmark judgment which clearly exposes the falsehood which was being propagated by the Congress parties and by some of the intellectuals who have been spreading this canard, who have been spreading this notion that girls will be deprived from education. Yes, the Supreme Court has set the entire context. A hijab is not intrinsic to the Muslim religion, and to all of those who falsely equate this situation with the Sikh religion, let me put this on record with the strongest reiteration that the only religion which mandates a distinctive physical identity is Sikhism. In fact, today's judgment has made it very clear that since hijab is not an intrinsic part of the Muslim religion, there are certain institutions which can have their own rules. And please let us not lose context of the entire debate. Women were not barred from entering campuses. They were only asked to remove hijab inside the classroom, which from an education perspective makes perfect sense. An educator needs to follow the facial expressions to ensure that what is being taught is being followed. So why do you mix it up with a completely unfounded situation? In fact, Rahul Gandhi had propagated on the day of Saraswati Puja, which was a very shameful tweet, mind you, that on a day when the world worships Saraswati, they are being deprived of education. No, they are not being deprived of education. In fact, for good education, it is very important that an educator follows your facial expression and knows and gets reassured that you are following what is being taught in a class.
Okay. I want to bring in Syed Aslam Pasha on that note. Syed Aslam Pasha, what is being said by Tuhin Sinha is that for good education, the entire concept of a uniform is that there is uniformity among students, and that is why, in fact, the hijab, now that the court has also ruled, is not a part of essential religious practice. This order has to be followed. What do you see happening in coming days, and do you agree with Tuhin Sinha when he says that this is important for education to be imparted and a uniform is there in the very first place so that people and the differences that exist between students of economic background or whatever other background they may have socially, identity-wise, all of that is negated?
Well, Madhav, let me tell you, we all have huge respect to the judicial system, but today's verdict, we are very disappointed with today's verdict. And today, the court says that hijab is not an essential religious practice of Islam. But how do you decide that? Is it not interfering in the religion? The Article 25 talks about freedom of religion. The Article 25 talks about, freedom to practice, profess, and propagate the religion. But is it not interfering into the religion? And also, Article 15 talks about no discrimination basis, basis religion, sex, creed, place of birth, and so on and so forth. And is this not the violation of that? Now today, let me tell you about Islam. Okay, the basic essence of this today's verdict is we are saying that hijab is not an essential religious practice in in Islamic faith. But let me tell you a verse from Quran. We say la ikhra fid din, which means that there is no compulsion in Islam, right? There is no compulsion. If there is a framework in Islam, if you like it, you definitely follow it. There is no compulsion. But does it mean that nothing can be practiced in Islam? Being in India, we've got a beautiful constitution. Yes, of course, we have due respect to the
Syed
judicial
Aslam
system.
Pasha, that's a point of debate. Perhaps theologians should debate it, but the court has considered the very vocabulary and the syntax and the grammar that has been used also in this entire judgment. I'm going to... All right, let's go right back to our guests. We've been discussing the verdict that's come out of the Karnataka High Court on the entire hijab issue. And before we went into the break, Ashwani Dubey, we saw Syed Aslam Pasha come out to say that he believes that this verdict, and he says it is not doing adequate justice to the interpretations that have been given, the provisions that have been given in the Quran, saying that the entire notion that this is not an essential practice in religion is an erroneous one. Your response to that?
There are two laws exist in the country. One which passes the essential test under Article 13 of the Constitution of India, means the laws is placed, which we call the codified laws, which govern the practices and various other rights given to the Hindus, Sikhs, Christians and Bauds and other people who are governed under the Hindu law. There is one other uncodified law based on the religious scripture. Now the question here it is, this hijab controversy, hijab issue is based on a religious scripture which does not passes the essential test under Article 13 of the Constitution of India, means the laws in place. Now, India is a secular country. Secularism forms a part of the basic structure of our Constitution. The Supreme Court time to time and S.R. Bomoi case have said when the state allows citizens to practice and profess their religion, it does not either explicitly or implicitly allow them to introduce religion into non-religious and secular activities of the state. You were discussing about the essential religious test. So Article 25(1) of the Constitution guarantees what my friend, co-panelist just spoke about, the freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice and propagate religion. It is a right, indeed it's a right, that guarantees a negative liberty, which means that the state shall ensure that there is no interference or obstacle to exercise this freedom. But like all fundamental rights, the state can restrict the right on the grounds of public order, decency, morality, health and other state interests. So freedom of conscience, right to profess, right to practice, right to propagate.
Okay, so you're saying this is a reasonable restriction and the state government is perfectly entitled to impose such a reasonable restriction in a restricted area, like for instance a school. It is not in order for what is happening out on the streets. But let me take this across to Shalini Ali, who's a national convener of the women's wing of the Muslim Rashtriya Manch. Shalini Ali ji, कुछ समय पहले हमने सुना सहरा शाह हलीम का कहना था कि इस ऑर्डर का इम्पैक्ट ये होगा कि मुस्लिम लड़कियां पढ़ नहीं पाएंगी अब, लेकिन अब जब कोर्ट का ऑर्डर आया है, आप क्या मानते हैं इन स्टूडेंट्स को क्या करना चाहिए? पिटिशनर्स ने कम से कम आके यही कहा है कि वो अब एग्जाम्स नहीं देंगे क्योंकि उनको हिजाब में एग्जाम देना अलाउड नहीं होगा. आप क्या मैसेज देना चाहेंगे उन स्टूडेंट्स को?
देखिए, सबसे पहले तो मैं आपको ये बात बता दूं कि जब इतने देर से, इतने दिनों से, महीना भर भी होने को आ रहा है, हिजाब का मुद्दा बनाया गया है, तो मैंने पहले फर्स्ट टाइम से भी मैंने यही बात कही थी कि आप हिजाब का मुद्दा बना रहे हैं. अगर आपने एजुकेशन या शिक्षा या इकरा का मुद्दा बनाना होता तो आप उसे मुद्दा बनाइए. आपने हिजाब का मुद्दा क्यों बनाया? क्योंकि अगर आप इस बात पे इत्तेफाक रखते हैं कि हिजाब पहनना चाहिए और लड़कियों को हिजाब पहन के ही स्कूल जाना चाहिए, तो सबसे पहले बात, कुरान में जो लिखा गया वो है पहली चीज इकरा, और दूसरी चीज जो लिखा गया है कि आप हुब्बुल वतनी निस्फुल ईमान, यानी कि जिस जमीन पे, जिस देश में आप रह रहे हैं, उस देश में जो भी कानून है उस कानून का पालन करिए. अब जब आप इकरा के लिए जाते हैं तो आप किसी ना किसी स्कूल में जाते हैं, विद्यालय में जाते हैं, तो आप शिक्षा पाने के लिए जा रहे हैं. तो आप एक माता पिता, एक अभिभावक होकर भी आप वही स्कूल ढूंढते हैं जहां आपको लगता है कि मेरे बच्चे जाएं, वहां पे अच्छे से शिक्षा प्राप्त करें, अच्छे इंसान बने और आगे चल के अपनी जिंदगी और अपने देश को, अपने प्रदेश को आगे लेकर चलिए. तो यहाँ हिजाब कहाँ से आ जाता है? पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द लॉ ऑफ द लैंड, इंडिया इज द लार्जेस्ट डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री.
Right.
You have the right to practice any religion, your own religion. You have not been stopped from praying namaz.
Okay.
You have not been stopped by keeping
Shalini Ali, I'm going to
rozas.
request you to hold on to your thoughts. Some very important points you're making. I'm going to request you and our other guests to stay with us. We're going to slip into a very quick break. Nation Wants to Know will continue with this discussion on the other side. Stay tuned.